Welcome to Three Questions With. I'm Hugo Valdez, publisher of the Latino News Network and your host. Three Questions With is a public affairs program elevating the voices and visibility of matters most important to the Hispanic-Latino community by speaking with community and industry thought leaders on the social determinants of health and democracy. Advocating for the rights and interests of the Hispanic-Latino community takes a village. Fostering partnerships creates a united front to address challenges and work towards sustainable solutions. Few organizations like the Hispanic Federation have been at the forefront of addressing issues such as immigration, healthcare, employment, and social justice, ensuring that the voices of the community are heard and represented. Founded in 1990, HF, a nonprofit membership organization, seeks to empower and advance the Hispanic community, support Hispanic families, and strengthen Latino institutions through work in the areas of education, health, immigration, civic engagement, economic empowerment, and the environment. Roberto Valdez Jr. is the Midwest Director of Policy at the Hispanic Federation. He is our guest today. Roberto, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Hugo.
HF boasts that its effectiveness lies in the depth of relationships with Latino communities and strength, connection with grass tops and grassroots stakeholders. Let's have the conversation there. Tell us about the work of the Hispanic Federation.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. The Hispanic Federation is a national Latino nonprofit organization that seeks to empower the Latino community, support Latino families, and strengthen Latino institutions. We work in 6 different issue areas. They include education, immigration, healthcare, environment, civic engagement. I'm missing one. Essentially, our goal is to connect with partner and member organizations to elevate their voices in these issue areas and be a voice at these different stakeholder tables. We also work in programming as well as capacity building and coalition building, all with the center of community and really, again, elevating that voice.
And now, one of the things that we were talking about before the program started was the importance of collaboration and bridge building with other organizations that have been embedded generations here in Chicago and Cook County. Tell us a little bit about the importance of collaborating with some of these grassroots organizations.
Yeah, I think the value that collaboration brings is the expertise and the insight that these organizations and these leaders who have been doing this work for decades, that value that they bring to the conversation, right? We bring these partners to the tables with elected officials, with representatives, and so they can really tell the true stories, the narratives of the issues and the victories happening in the community. And so that would be impossible for the Hispanic Federation. I feel any organization doing this type of work, if they're not tapping into that conversation, the collaboration. So really, the step one is contacting our partners and our member organizations to understand, A, what are the issues that you're hearing about, and B, what do you want us to do about it? You know, there's much more to that, but essentially I think that's the core of that collaboration and really tapping into the decades of knowledge and expertise of these organizations and these leaders.
And I think that also helps build trust with the community, right? To have these organizations be the liaisons with Hispanic Federation in the beginning, although, of course, now many years, the Hispanic Federation is certainly part of the community in Chicago as it is in other markets. Let's talk about the second topic I wanted to talk to you about. Sure. Is recently HF announced that it's expanding in its partnership with Comcast, NBC Universal, Telemundo to advance digital equity and skills building within Latino communities across the country. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, no, we're very excited to continue our partnership with Comcast, NBC Universal, Telemundo. We have been provided with a grant of $2.5 million to support internet access and connectivity expansion, as well as job digital skills training programs, which will essentially help over 10,000 Latino students and job seekers. This continues to add on to the digital equity work that we've done for many, many years, specifically with our Digital Accelerator program, as well as expanding digital equity centers that do this type of work. And so we're really excited that these investments are going to 17 Latino leading and Latino serving organizations from 18 different cities across the country, one being Chicago, Illinois. And again, very thrilled to continue our partnership and work with Instituto de Progreso Latino, who has been doing this work for many years now. And one of the uniqueness of this program, Hugo, is we provide the curriculum and the training tools to organizations like Instituto. What Instituto and other organizations do, they tailor this program and this training to their communities and their constituents by looking at the what local employers are looking for, right? So for example, if there are plenty of administrative or operational jobs out there, for example, in the Pilsen or Little Village area or whatever neighborhood in Chicago, then Instituto will tailor their programs to ensure that folks are receiving training on how to manage a calendar, how to manage, email, how to understand, different, aspects of setting up Zooms and those type of things that like an admin or operational person does, right? That's just an example. And so we're really, really excited to continue this partnership. In addition to the investments in the digital equity work, with these training programs, we'll be doing advocacy around the federal dollars that are coming or that are being distributed to states around the BEAD program, which will distribute $42.5 billion, $1 billion of those coming to Illinois. And so what those dollars are intended to do is ensure that underserved and unserved communities in Illinois and across the country have the strongest connectivity and technology they have to ensure that they can find these jobs of the 21st century. And so our job is to bring our partners and members to the table with elected officials, administrative officials that are putting together these programs so that these dollars get to our communities and these dollars are being invested to our Latino serving organizations.
The digital divide is something that we at Illinois Latino News are certainly covering here in Chicago and in other markets where we have a presence. We saw the need for connectivity during the pandemic, right? We saw people not being able to work from home because of a lack of connectivity, or even just like you said, training. We saw students not having access to be able to have remote learning. Many of these families parked outside libraries, parked outside areas that did have Wi-Fi. In regards to, so it's wonderful to see that there's a lot of investment in regards to bridging, to narrowing that gap. Mm-hmm. And as you said, ensuring that the investments are going to the people that need it the most, beginning with Latinos. In regards to some of the things that we saw, some of the unfortunate hard lessons learned of the pandemic, can you share with us a little bit about that? What did we see during the pandemic when it came to students, when it came to essential workers and families in general not having that connectivity?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is that there's so much work to do. And so the response of the federal government, state governments, and local governments has been accurate, and in that they understand and saw the great need. I think specifics. We saw families who were utilizing one computer, one tablet, one phone for all of their digital needs, and that's just not going to get the job done, right? We saw parents having to provide their children with a phone to take their class, right? And that's just not a good environment for children to learn. And of course, you are taking away the tool that an adult needs to carry their daily life. And so, again, the biggest takeaway would be that there's a lot of work to do, but I'm very happy to see how folks have responded, both from the government side. The philanthropic side has also provided resources to organizations, understanding that this is an issue that will take a lot of time to address. And so Hispanic Federation is excited that we can provide these resources, and we're really looking forward to seeing how, again, these dollars that are coming from the federal government can be utilized and really stretched out, so that when hopefully it never happens again. But if there is a pandemic or a crisis that we are facing, we're in a better position than we were a few years ago.
Great, and certainly count on Illinois Latino News to work with HF to not only provide a light to this social problem, but really also the responses to the social problem, because I think that's going to be really important to do as well. Let's talk about Crear Futuros, another initiative led by HF, education that works to collaborate with UIC's Lattice program. Tell us about that.
Yeah, very excited. We've formed a partnership with the University of Illinois, Chicago Lattice program, which focuses on first-generation students. And so the Crear Futuros program is a peer mentorship program that connects freshmen and sophomore college students with juniors and seniors to have that peer mentor experience. And so it is a friendly curriculum training that we provide. These individuals understand each other from life experiences, but they can also share their school experiences. And I think that's sometimes missing when we're looking at the academic route, understanding that they have someone to talk to and lean on if they have a question, both when it comes to classes or just something going wrong at home. And so creating that environment. So we're bringing together these leaders and providing them with resources, again, training curriculums to understand things like how to fill out a FAFSA, the different scholarship opportunities, identifying resources at UIC in this instance that they can utilize, for example, mental health resources that they can use that are potentially bilingual or Spanish leading. And so we're very fortunate to have the partner at UIC Lattice program that really already has this infrastructure in place. And so we're looking forward to expanding that in the years to come.
And that type of mentoring is so important. Many members of our community, they're the first ones to even just think about pursuing a higher education, and coming from families that are struggle to get here and are successful in their own right, but they don't have that background of pursuing higher education or even looking at, you mentioned FAFSA, resources available in order to help pay for that education. So to partner these young people with other young people that are going through it or have gone through it is so important in regards to, if this person is doing it and they have similar lived experiences, why can't I?
Right.
What other needs do you and the work that you do and HF does in regards to education and students? What other necessities are you focusing on that they need in regards to as far as resources go?
So we're trying to strengthen the pipeline between Latino students, specifically first-generation students that are graduating high school, going into college, and then college post-education or a secondary degree, and then into their careers. And so we also have a program partnership with Morgan Stanley to look at high school students being partnered up with freshmen and sophomores, and so trying to make that connection and understanding these are the different opportunities that you have, not just with colleges, but also different career options like financial services and other options that Morgan Stanley offers. So again, trying to strengthen that pipeline, I think, is our focus, and understanding that providing these resources, as you mentioned, being very, very understanding that being bicultural, culturally competent. I know that is a buzz phrase being thrown around, but it is very, very important that we provide that space and those resources for these students.
And those partnerships, again, you are so key, and getting them at the high school level, because it's not just about when they're in college, it's when they're in high school, and help them strategize about what the next 4 years will be, because it's not just about getting a higher education, it's making sure that you're following a North Star in getting a job after those 4 years and starting a career. So those partnerships are, like you mentioned, with banking and finances, industry at the high school level are so important. You're watching Three Questions with Roberto Valdez Jr., Midwest Director of Policy at the Hispanic Federation. When we come back, we're going to learn a little bit more about Roberto. He born and raised in a border state, a border community, and how that's helped shape the work that he does today.
Hello, I'm Kimberly Loftus, and I am financially secure. I have made it my business to help you achieve the same financial transformation for 2024.
Whether you're in abundance or not in abundance, if your mind is centered around money, then you know something's wrong.
In the Money airs on Thursdays at 7 p.m. on CanTV 19, cantv.org, and on the all-new CanTV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
We've been talking to Roberto Valdez Jr., Midwest Director for Policy at the Hispanic Federation, about the organization's mission to empower and advance the Hispanic community and partnerships with Comcast, NBC Universal, Telemundo, to name a few, in advancing digital equity and skills building within the Latino community. But now we're going to learn a little bit about you. You were born in Yuma, Arizona, which, by the way, is the same birthplace as labor leader and civil rights activist Cesar Chavez. You were born in Yuma, you grew up in Nogales. Yeah. Tell us about growing up in a border state and how that started to shape the work that you do today.
Absolutely. Growing up, understanding that I was born in Yuma was just that in itself. But as I got older and started working in advocacy, understood the significance of Yuma and, of course, Cesar Chavez and the amazing groundwork that he laid forward for us. And so grew up in Nogales, Arizona, which, as you mentioned, is a border town between Sonora, Mexico and Arizona. And so understanding the connections between those two communities really fostered my way of community and really connecting with folks on both sides of the border, right? And so my mom was actually born in Nogales, Sonora, Mexico, my dad in the Nogales, Arizona, United States. And so when I say I grew up on both sides of the border, it truly is that. And so understanding that from two different worlds, two different countries, but really so much more in common than differences. And so that was an anchor in some of the work, I would say all the work that I've done, in that listening is one of the most important things you can do to understand and maybe provide whatever support. And so, and even looking at the leadership that my family provided in the border town, folks ask me, like, what really pushed you to do the work that you do today? And I point to my family because they were in leadership positions their entire careers. I remember in second grade when I was with my father, who was serving as my uncle's campaign manager as he ran for mayor, putting signs on lawns of houses and knocking on doors. And so that for me was a normal thing. That's what I thought everyone did. And so understanding that sense of leadership in the community was an anchor. Grandmother served in the city council for many years. As I mentioned, my uncle ran for mayor, won that election, and at the time was the youngest mayor in the United States. And so for me, as I navigated my academic career and then early career into work, I saw, that was the platform for me, is to be this leader, is just understanding how I can navigate those waters, if you will. And so just understanding the skills that I had, the examples that I was given as a child, and then, really pointing to what I wanted to do. Having the experience of growing up in a border town and understanding how to have these conversations with different folks led me to, work in advocacy, spent some time in Washington, D.C., found myself sometimes being the only person of color in certain tables. And I always ask myself, why? Why am I here? There's plenty of other smarter people that could be here. And I turned that question into more of a statement, saying, I am the one here. Let's utilize the time and the experience I have in providing voice. And so that all stems from, I think, growing up in the border, having a family who gave that example of leadership.
So it sounds like public service is the family business, and just that lived experience of living in a border town. A lot of people who are not from that part of the country, they don't understand this is a symbiotic relationship. There's a border on the map, but there isn't a border when you live in those communities. Many people cross to work in the United States and vice versa, and you have family that found each other regardless of this imaginary border that exists. I wanted to ask you. You mentioned you also worked in Washington D.C. Of course, you're working here in Chicago. The experience that you've had living in a border state, also working in Washington D.C. Now that we're seeing this influx of asylum seekers that are being bused almost every week, and some of the debate that's happening about how to, what to do with them, building tents because of, as the Brandon Johnson administration is doing because of the winter months, but also some of the uproar of communities to saying, hey, we've been asking for resources for years and being ignored. Now you're providing those resources to newcomers. From a Hispanic Federation standpoint, but also from your experience living in those border towns and really understanding what's happening, what are your impressions of what's happening here in Chicago, the response from the Brandon Johnson administration, and from a Hispanic Federation standpoint, the help that's needed?
No, absolutely. It is a complicated issue, and I don't think there's a silver bullet that really will address everything going on. I do think I would start by saying comprehensive immigration reform is needed. This is just one of the results of not taking action for many, many decades. So I think that's something that we need to elevate again and talk about into the conversation. Look, the fact of the matter is these folks are coming to the U.S. because life in these other countries, their home that they called it at one time, is just not good for them. It's not safe for them. So they're coming to the U.S. for a reason. They're not coming to the U.S. because their streets are paved with gold, if you will, right? And so I think we need to understand that. We also have to understand the frustration that other communities are expressing around disinvestment and not providing these resources for many, many years. It's understandable, right? I think any of us who would be in their situation would be frustrated. And so I think it's not a either or, it's a both and approach. And I want to give credit for that saying. Sylvia Puente always says that it's not an either or, it's a both and approach. And I think this is one example that of that situation. And so the Johnson administration, the Pritzker administration, I think have done the best that they can with the limited resources that they have. I think that, I applaud the Johnson administration for bringing leaders to his administration who understand the issue, who come from community and can work with community to try to alleviate some of these issues. So there's definitely that. But there's also a lot of lessons learned, right? The recent shelter tent that was essentially closed down for construction because of the environmental issues, that needs to be addressed. So understanding that we're trying to help folks, but I think not rushing to things is obviously the best approach. And I would end by saying, you mentioned my experience, living and growing up in a border town, and so these folks will remember how we address them and support them now. They'll remember this, and I say that because they are the future of our community here in Chicago. And so just going back to my experience in high school and understanding that there were classmates in some of my classes who actually lived in Mexico, but were going to school in the U.S., right? Used an address from one of their aunts or uncles in the U.S. side. And some folks were saying, hey, that's not legal, that's not right. I understood it as them trying to better themselves and get a better education. And then not forgetting the human aspect of things. These individuals are humans, and compassion is extremely important during these times.
Yeah, it requires a multi-pronged approach to an issue that is very diverse. There's no turnkey solution to immigration, and of course, as you've mentioned, let's not forget the people. The people that are here, why they came, and where they came from. Roberto, you've been so generous with your time. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
When we come back, La Última Palabra on Latinos and the digital divide.
This week on Change Agents, we'll meet a couple of leaders who are striving hard to provide housing, resources, and services to unaccompanied youth and families from Chicago's west and south sides who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness.
We need to remember that we can all prosper here.
Join me Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on CAN-TV 19, stream us live on cantv.org, or watch us on the CAN-TV app. Experience the power of community television.
And now, la última palabra, the last word on closing the digital divide with Latinos. The digital divide remains a significant challenge for many communities, and it's crucial to address this issue with Latinos specifically. By closing the gap and ensuring equal access to digital resources and education, we can empower Latino communities and create a more inclusive society. Access to technology is essential for education, employment, healthcare, and social engagement. Unfortunately, many Latinos face barriers such as limited internet access, lack of devices, and insufficient digital skills. It's time to break down these barriers and provide equal opportunities for all. Closing the digital divide requires collaborative efforts from government, nonprofits, and the private sector. These entities must work together to provide affordable internet access, ensure the availability of devices, and offer digital literacy programs tailored to the needs of the Latino community. The Connecticut State Library has received a national leadership grant to implement a replicable digital navigation system for underserved communities statewide. Over the next 2 years, the CSLS Division of Library Development will spearhead this initiative with significant progress expected in the upcoming year. LNN affiliate Connecticut Latino News is partnering with the Connecticut State Public Libraries to produce stories on raising awareness on this equity issue. Closing the digital divide with Latinos isn't just about access, it's about empowering communities and ensuring equal opportunities for all. By working together, we can bridge this gap, provide the necessary resources, and empower Latino communities to thrive in an increasingly digital world. And that does it for this edition of 3 Questions With, a collaboration by Illinois Latino News and CAN-TV. LNN is dedicated to best serving Hispanic Latinos with local multimedia news and information websites across the U.S., including Illinois Latino News, a statewide community-focused initiative. I invite you to look us up on our websites and chat with us via social media. Tell us what you think about topics we talked about today, and please send me suggestions about what you think we should talk about in the future. Because at the Latino News Network, you're more than just an audience. You are our contributors. I'm Hugo. Thank you all for watching.